You're not tired because you do too much. You're tired because you keep tolerating the wrong things from the wrong people. The sarcasm, they say, is just a joke. The criticism they hide behind just being honest. The silence they give you every time you need support the most, and still, you tell yourself to be kind, to understand their pain, to not overreact. But here's the truth. What you allow is what will continue. Every time you stay quiet, they get louder. Every time you let it slide, they push further. Every time you swallow your truth, you teach them that your peace is negotiable. But it's not. It's sacred, and the Stoics, they knew this deeply. You were not put here to be walked on in the name of kindness. So today, we stop tolerating what erodes us. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll know exactly which 10 behaviors to cut off without guilt, and how to build boundaries that feel like peace, not punishment. Let's be clear. This isn't a video about being rude or building walls or cutting people off just to feel powerful. This is about waking up to the behaviors that slowly erode your peace, your confidence, and your sense of self. Because too many of us have confused being a good person with being a doormat. We tell ourselves it's just how they are. We rationalize the disrespect. We overthink our response, while they never question their actions. But the Stoics remind us, you don't control people, but you do control what you allow. So today, we'll walk through 10 behaviors you should never tolerate, even from the people you love. And at the end, I'll share one simple Stoic shift that will change the way you hold boundaries forever, without guilt, without drama, just quiet, grounded clarity. Let's begin. Clara was the kind of person everyone counted on, always available, always smiling, always saying yes. But deep down, she was exhausted. Her boss dumped work on her because you're so responsible. Her friends vented non-stop, but never asked how she was. Her partner took, expected, assumed, but never truly saw her. And Clara, she stayed silent, told herself, it's not worth the fight. I can handle it. Until one afternoon, she walked into the woods, too tired to cry, too numb to explain. There, she met an old woman, tending to a massive tree. The branches were wide, the roots deep. But what stood out were the sharp wooden signs nailed into the trunk. No climbing, no cutting, no trespassing. Clara asked, why so many signs? The old woman smiled. Because trees don't speak, but they still deserve to be left in peace. Then she looked at Clara and said, your silence is not kindness, it's a language people have learned to exploit. That was the moment Clara realized saying no isn't rude, setting limits isn't mean. It's how strong things stay standing. Just like Clara, maybe you've been telling yourself that tolerating everything makes you loving, but the truth, love with no boundaries is just self-erasure in disguise. Behavior number 1, disrespect hidden as honesty. They say they're just being honest, but it always cuts a little too deep, always sounds a little too cold, and never seems to come from a place of love. They point out your flaws like it's a public service, critique your choices as if they're your moral compass. But here's what they won't admit. It's not honesty, it's control wrapped in the language of truth. Because real honesty is rooted in respect. It's about building, not belittling. It's about clarity, not cruelty. The Stoics valued truth, but they also believed that speech should be necessary and kind. Your practice? Start noticing the difference between someone who speaks from care and someone who just enjoys being right. Ask yourself, did that comment serve growth or just inflate their ego? And then remember this, You don't have to accept truth that wounds without wisdom. Kindness isn't weakness, and honesty without empathy is just a sharp weapon in the hands of someone who never learned how to heal. Speak truth, yes, but only the kind that lifts, not lashes. Behavior enough too. Guilt-tripping disguised as love. They never yell, they never demand. Instead, they sigh. They go silent. They say things like, "After everything I've done for you, I guess I just care more than you do." And suddenly, you become the villain. You feel guilty. You start bending, just to prove your love. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't manipulate through guilt. It invites. It doesn't control. Because guilt-tripping isn't about emotion. It's about power. It keeps you hooked. It makes your boundaries feel like betrayal. It convinces you that your independence is selfish. But the Stoics remind us you are responsible for your actions, not other people's reactions. Here's your practice. When guilt enters the room, pause, ask yourself, is this love or emotional leverage? And if it's leverage, step back, not with anger, but with clarity. You don't owe anyone your silence, your surrender, or yourself. Because the people who truly love you don't need to guilt you to keep you close. They simply show up and let you choose freely behavior. 3. One-sided listening. They always call, always text, always want to talk, but only about themselves, their pain, their drama, their opinions, their world. And when you finally open up, they change the subject or say, "Wow, that sucks." Then pivot right back to their story. You're not in a conversation. You're in a monologue, disguised as connection, and slowly you stop sharing, you shrink, you become the listener, because no one ever makes space for your voice. But here's what the Stoics would tell you. Friendship is a dance, not a spotlight. True connection is rooted in mutual respect, not emotional extraction. Your practice? Pay attention to how they react when you speak from the heart. Do they lean in or tune out? Do they ask questions or shift the focus? Because one-sided listening isn't kindness, it's convenience. And your voice wasn't meant to echo in someone else's silence. Protect it, use it, share it with those who don't just hear, but hold behavior. Number 4, backhanded compliments. You look good for your age. That's actually smart, coming from you. I'm surprised you got that job. I thought they'd pick someone more experienced. They smile when they say it. Act like it's a joke. Claim you're too sensitive if. You flinch, but deep down, you feel it. The sting, the slight, the subtle cut buried inside their praise. Because it was never a compliment. It was a camouflaged jab, a masked insecurity, a quiet attempt to pull you down without getting caught. The Stoics would call this what it is. Ego trying to maintain control by dressing envy up as humor. Here's your practice. Don't engage, don't laugh, don't justify. Instead, pause and say with calm, was that meant as encouragement or something else? Let the silence speak, because people who respect you don't flirt with insults. They don't lace affection with subtle disrespect. You don't need to earn love by tolerating tiny wounds. You deserve people who uplift without condition and mean what they say without the poison. Behavior. Consistently ignoring your boundaries, you say no. They push, you ask for space. They follow, you express a limit. They laugh, and then they say, you're too serious. Don't be dramatic. I was just playing. But here's the truth. Anyone who ignores your boundaries isn't just being playful, they're being entitled. Because people who truly see you listen when you speak, and people who value connection respect when you pull back. The Stoics were clear. You can't control others, but you can control your line in the sand. So, here's your practice. Don't just repeat yourself, reinforce yourself. If they cross the boundary twice, it's no longer a misunderstanding, it's a message. And you have every right to end the conversation when someone refuses to honor your humanity. Because boundaries aren't barriers to love, they're the foundation of real, lasting respect. Let them be uncomfortable, let them call you cold. You're not here to be agreeable, you're here to be integral. Behavior number 6, always making you the punchline. They tease you in front of others, make jokes at your expense, point out your flaws with a laugh track attached, and when you speak up, they say, "You're too sensitive. Relax, it's just a joke. You know I love you, right?" But here's what they don't say. They know exactly where to strike, and they know who won't strike back. It's not humor, it's humiliation, wrapped in a smile. And the more you laugh it off, the more they learn. Your silence is permission, your discomfort is invisible. The Stoics didn't fear opinion, but they didn't tolerate disrespect. So here's your practice. Stop laughing when the joke's on you. Look them in the eye and say, "That's not funny, try again." Not with anger, with clarity, because someone who truly loves you won't build their confidence by tearing yours down. You are not the punchline, you are the person, and your dignity is not a setup for someone else's entertainment. Behavior number 7, using your kindness as a weapon. They know you care, they know you don't like conflict, they know you'll forgive, even when it hurts. And so, they push, they take, they cross lines because they assume you won't leave. Why? Because you're the nice one, the patient one, the strong one. But that's not a compliment, that's a strategy. They weaponize your empathy, twist your softness into submission, and suddenly, your kindness becomes the very reason they keep wounding you. Here's what the Stoics would remind you. A virtue without boundaries becomes a weakness in disguise. Kindness is powerful when it's conscious, not when it's manipulated. Your practice, ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being controlled through my own compassion? Then make a shift, because you can be good without being gullible. You can be soft without being silent. And the next time someone uses your heart, their personal shield, remind them even the gentlest soul has a limit. Behavior number 8, constantly making you second-guess yourself. You say what you feel, and they raise an eyebrow. You share an idea, and they say, "Really? You think that'll work?" It's subtle, it's casual, but it's constant, and soon you start shrinking. You question your instincts, you edit your words, you hesitate to speak because somewhere along the way, you stopped trusting yourself, and that's the goal. They don't need to control you directly if they can make you doubt your own judgment. This isn't guidance, it's gaslighting in soft tones and smiles. But the Stoics teach us. Wisdom begins when you learn to trust your inner compass, not someone else's reactions. Here's your practice. Notice the pattern. Ask yourself, do I feel clearer or more confused after talking to them? Because a real friend doesn't leave you second-guessing your worth. They remind you who you are when you forget. And anyone who gains power by making you doubt your own voice should never be allowed to shape your future. Clarity is your responsibility, confidence is your practice, and self-trust is a muscle you reclaim every time you stop explaining yourself to someone who never truly listened. Behavior 9, blaming you for their emotions. They get angry and say it's because of you. They shut down, and somehow that's your fault too. Their sadness because you weren't there enough. Their jealousy because you made them feel insecure. And slowly, you begin to believe it. You start walking on eggshells. You change your tone. You twist yourself into shapes to avoid setting them off. But here's the truth. You are not responsible for emotions they refuse to manage. You are not the cause of someone else's chaos just because you were in the room. The Stoics taught this with clarity. We own our reactions, we master our response, and blame is what the untrained mind uses to avoid growth. Here's your practice. Stop apologizing for their inner weather. Stop shrinking to control storms that aren't even yours. You are responsible for your words, your tone, your presence, but their anger, their shame, their emotional immaturity, that's their lesson, not your burden. You're not their fixer. You're not their punching bag. You're not their emotional sponge. And the moment you stop absorbing blame is the moment you start returning to your own center. Behavior. Run 10. Making you feel hard to love. They don't insult you directly. They don't yell. They don't walk away. But every gesture carries a message. You're too much, too emotional, too needy, too intense. So you tone yourself down, you filter your feelings, you try to become easier to be around, and after a while, you start believing that maybe love isn't for you, that maybe your softness is a flaw, that maybe your depth is just drama. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't ask you to dim your light. It asks you to stand in it. And anyone who makes you feel like your truth is a burden isn't offering love. They're offering conditional approval. The Stoics remind us, you can't find peace by becoming smaller for someone else's comfort. Your practice, stop auditioning for people who never saw your worth to begin with, because your ability to feel deeply, speak honestly, and love fully isn't a weakness. It's a power. And the right people, they won't ask you to change. They'll meet you where you are and rise with you. You are not too much. You've just spent too long with people who are never ready for enough. Let's be honest, most people don't break because of one big betrayal. They break because of the little things they kept tolerating in silence, the jokes that weren't funny, the guilt they didn't deserve, the boundaries that were ignored again and again and again. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what you're starting to remember. Peace isn't something they give you, it's something you protect. With clarity, with courage, and with the willingness to finally say, I've had enough. So today, you stop shrinking, you stop explaining, you stop sacrificing your truth for the comfort of people who never once cared how you felt. Because strength isn't just staying quiet, it's knowing exactly when to walk away. If this video helped you draw a new line, if it gave you language for what your heart already knew, subscribe and keep building this quiet strength with us. Drop a comment. Which behavior will you no longer tolerate, no matter who it comes from? And when you're ready for the next step, watch this video. Stop helping people who won't change. The Stoic way to protect your energy. Thanks for reclaiming your boundaries and growing a little stronger, wiser, and more stoic today.